Have started engraving the names of fallen law enforcement officers at the National Memorial in Washington, D.C. And this year, fallen Fargo police officer Jake Walline's name is going to be added to that memorial. Prior to the National Police Week, the names of law enforcement officers who died in the line of duty are engraved into the memorial. 282 names are going to be added this year, joining the more than 23,000 dating all the way back to the first known American officer death in 1786.
By virtue of it being engraved here, there's some part of that that conveys onto the family and perhaps onto the nation that while we certainly would wish that they were still alive, by virtue of their sacrifice and their name being engraved here, that we are in some way trying to memorialize them, their name, their story, that it will exist here for all time.
The names will also be read aloud during the 36th annual Memorial Candlelight Vigil in Washington, D.C. in mid-May.